It was Mr. Sweet's 90th birthday, and I was finishing my doctorate in Massachusetts. I had made arrangements. I had made arrangements to go home for several weeks rest. That morning, I received a telegram stating that Mr. Sweet was dying again, and if I could please drop everything and come home. Of course I could. My dissertation could wait, and my teachers would understand when I explained to them when I got back. I ran to the phone, called the airport. Within 4 hours, I was speeding down a dusty road to Mr. Sweet's. The house was more dilapidated than the last I was there. Barely a shack. It was overgrown with yellow roses, which my family had planted many years ago. It was strange walking through the gate and up the old rickety steps. The air was heavy and sweet and very peaceful. The strangers faded as I caught sight of a long white beard flowing down over a familiar quilted cordite Mr. Sweet. His eyes were closed tight. And his hands were crossed over his stomach. Which were thin and delicate, no longer scratchy. Okay. No longer scratchy. I remember being able to run and jump up on him anywhere. But now I know that he could not support my weight. I looked around and noticed my parents. I looked around for my parents and noticed that my father and mother looked old and frail also. My father's head, very gray, bent gently over the quietly sleeping old man and said, which incidentally smelled of wine and tobacco, and said, as he'd always done, "To hell with dying, man. My daughter has come home to see Mr. Sweet. My brother, who could not be here, as he was fighting a war in Asia. I bent gently over and not smooth, and starts with an S, not spade. Gently massaged or touched his eyes. I can't remember the S word. Touched his eyes. And touched his eyes, and his mouth and his wine-stained lips twitched and then parted in a warm, slightly embarrassed smile. Smile. Mr. Sweet saw me and he recognized me. And for a moment, no, not for a moment, and his eyes were spry and vibrant for a moment. I laid my head down on a pillow next to his, and we just looked at it, and we looked at each other for a long time, and we stared, and we looked at each other for a long time. He traced my particular hairline with his long, smooth fingers, and I closed my eyes. Particular fingers. And when his finger reached above my ear, I closed above my ear, which he rejoiced when he found dirt in my ear as a child, when I was little. I closed my eyes. Okay, I closed my eyes when his fingers halted above my ear. That's right. Which he rejoiced when he found dirt in my ear when I was little. His hand was cupped on my cheek, and when I opened my eyes, hoping that I had reached him in time, his eyes were closed. The end.